First, though, let's talk about the man that many folks are pointing at as the man and team to beat in 2010. Denny Hamlin, driver of the FedEx Toyota at Joe Gibbs Racing. Denny, thanks for joining us today on Raceline. Good to see you again. How ready are you to get back into a race car?
Yeah, I'm as ready as I've ever been, especially from the preparation aspect of it. I definitely feel like we're as strong as we've ever been.
Denny suffered a torn ligament in his left knee while playing basketball at home a couple of weeks ago, and says it's something that will eventually have to be taken care of, but it's not going to hinder him at all as he starts off the racing season next week at Daytona. So that aside, Denny, let's talk about the sweetness of coming into a new season being the most recent winner. You got the win down at Homestead Miami Speedway in the season-ending Ford 400 last year. So what does it mean starting off with a win fresh on your mind?
I think no matter what sport you're in, you always want to go out a champion or a winner. It's good for us to go out in 2009 and, of course, win the last race because you get to sit on it for a couple months. But it obviously gives us a lot of confidence going into 2010. We've had our last three finishes of 09 were first, second, and third. So, I definitely feel like, we're prepared to win a championship. Mentally and physically, I'm ready to win a championship. We just got to make sure we have all those pieces of the puzzle together when it counts.
Denny, as we said, a lot of folks are looking at your team as the team to beat. Even Jimmy Johnson admitted that you're going to be strong going into 2010. And you did have a good run in 2009, although kind of came off the rails in the running of the chase at the end of the season. So what kinds of things are your team looking at in the opening part of this season to try to make all that better in 2010?
Well, I think for the most part it's about pacing ourselves through the season. Not expecting too much early in the season, but really expecting all the good stuff when it really counts for those last 10 races. And that's what we did really a really good job at this year and this past year in 09 was that, we kind of worked our way into the chase and we performed our best when it really counted. We just didn't have all the reliability and stuff to go with it.
Reliability, just another of the thousands of moving parts that it takes to have working in concert to win in NASCAR, and especially to win championship. With Denny Hamlin from Joe Gibbs Racing, Denny, Hendrick Motorsports is obviously the team everybody's trying to beat. They are the dominant force. They've established themselves quite well in that role over the last 5 or 10 years. How do you think Joe Gibbs Racing right now is beginning to stack up against them collectively?
Collectively, I feel like we're number 2 to them. You can look at stats or whatever, and yes, they are the most dominant team in NASCAR, and they have been for the last few years. But what that does is give fuel to the fire for everyone at Joe Gibbs Racing to beat those guys. And I had a meeting with them in December. I says, I got to make sure from all the department heads that you guys want this championship as bad as I do. And they all agreed, and I think everyone has shown, especially with their work in the shop, that they do want it just as bad as I do.
We talked earlier today about rule changes this year. NASCAR's making some pretty stringent rule changes on the car and in race procedures going into 2010. What do you think about these changes? Are these changes for the good?
I think the rule changes are the most positive thing we've seen probably since double files restarts. We're doing a lot of things that they used to do. We didn't used to have all these rules on super speedways on how you could bump draft or this, that, or the other, whether it be a wing instead of a spoiler. We're getting back to the roots of NASCAR, and that's what made NASCAR so strong. And I think once people see the change that's coming this year, it's going to be a lot more appealing than what it's ever been.
Denny, obviously everybody wants to get off to a good start at Daytona and Auto Club Speedway in Las Vegas, first few races. But how long, in your mind, does it take, how deep into the season, before you really get a grasp on how good your team is?
To me, it's usually around Martinsville, 5, 6, 7 races in. You kind of get a feel for where you're at as a race team. For myself, it may be a little bit later in the season because I know how we're setting up our season and how we got our cars playing, things like that. So motors and all that. I think really for us, we'll know probably in August around Indy what we got.
All right, you mentioned Martinsville, and of course in the same state, your home state, is Richmond. And of course you finally got that victory there last year. Can you put into words what it meant for you to finally win at your home track?
Well, everyone knows how much Richmond meant to me, especially I've been so close so many times it was ridiculous. I don't know how many laps I'd led there, probably 1,000 before I actually won a race. And so for me, it was a very exciting win. You know, I said I wanted to win there before I won at Indy or Daytona. So Daytona's the next race on the list to check off, so we got to get that one done.
Well, Denny, good luck down at Daytona next week. We hope you have a couple of relaxing final few days before it all cranks up once again. Thanks for joining us today here on Raceline.
All right, thank God for me.